All right, finishing up our SEC preview with the one you've all been waiting for, the Vanderbilt Commodores, heading into 2024, their fourth season under Clark Lee, head coach. Rough year, man. They went 2-10 in 2023. They actually in 2022 looked pretty positive, right? They went 5-7 that last year, but 2-10 was the worst record in the Power Five in 2023. So, been a rough stretch for Vanderbilt. They haven't made a bowl game in 5 seasons now. They have a tough schedule and many glaring holes in this roster. I will say, we'll get into this, Dalton, and your breakdown of him. They have a dynamic new quarterback in Diego Pavia from New Mexico State. He had 1,058 rushing yards, which was fourth in the country for quarterbacks as well. The weakness of this team is basically everything else. There is not a lot else to be. Now, I will say they have their linebacker unit and secondary, basically because of one guy, is solid, and we'll talk about him in a little bit too, but man, there's a reason why they were the worst Power 5 team last year at 2-10. The 6th worst offense in the Power 5, 2nd worst defense in the Power 5 in terms of EPA per play. They need improvement everywhere on this team. So, Dalton, I mentioned before, Diego Pavia, exciting new quarterback they have from New Mexico State. Tell me more about him and what the Commodore fans should be expecting out of him in 2024.
Yeah, I think he's a true dual threat, and he's a leader. Like, you watch his style of play, even though he's only 6 foot and 200 pounds, the way he runs the ball and as tough as he runs the ball, he was fourth among all FBS quarterbacks in rushing yards last year, and he broke 46 missed tackles last year. Look, he got New Mexico State their first 10-win season since 1960. This guy's just tough as nails. Nearly 3,000 passing yards to go along with over 1,000 rushing yards, and you watch him and you go, he's a really good athlete for his size. He's really tough for his size. I believe he was a 96th percentile athlete. It's just, they're going to be a team that run and stop the run. But it is going to start with Pavia. And Pavia was the biggest reason that New Mexico State had such a good year last year. 10 wins, Conference USA title game appearance, big upset at Auburn. That was big time. I mean, if you base this offense around his rushing ability, you stand a chance. And he doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but he can threaten you up the seams coming off of play action and things like that. So they're going to stand a chance. And I think another guy that he's going to be throwing to, another guy that comes with him from New Mexico State is Eli Stowers, okay? Interesting player, a former 4-star quarterback recruit to Texas A&M, transfers to New Mexico State, gets beat out for the quarterback job by Pavia, moves to tight end this year, and actually has a pretty good year. He had a 71.8 grade and a 76.4 receiving grade. That was top 20 among all tight ends last year. And because of his kind of athleticism and former abilities as a dual threat quarterback, and it translates, Max, he was a 100 percentile athlete last year. He broke the scale. So if there's two guys that you're going to base this offense off of, it's the former Aggies from New Mexico State. It's Diego Pavia and it's Eli Stowers, who I think could become an interesting name at tight end next year. Not a guy we've talked about a lot, but he could move up the boards if that athleticism stays in the SEC, and that's real.
Absolutely, man. I'm a huge fan of both of them. I'm excited to see what they can do for that offense. But their star player is easily C.J. Taylor, the linebacker, safety, whatever you want to call him, man. He's listed as a linebacker in our database because he played mostly in the box for them. But he's 6'1", 201 pounds. He's basically a safety for this defense. Whatever you want to call him, though, man, he is a 84.9 coverage grade over the last 2 years, which is third among SEC safeties. And he had 10 pressures, which were the most among SEC safeties as well. In 2023, he was third among SEC safeties with a third among SEC linebackers with a 61.8 passer rating allowed. Also had a couple of interceptions, despite missing 3 games with a leg injury as well. So he actually was one of our top 10 linebackers in the country heading into 2024, which is saying a lot for a Vanderbilt player. I like C.J. Taylor a lot, man. It's kind of a hybrid linebacker safety for them on that defense, and I think he's pretty clearly Vanderbilt's best player they have heading into 2024. All right, bottom line time now, Dawn. Their win total for FanDuel is 2.5 because they went 2-10 last year. What should we expect out of Vanderbilt this year? Is there anything to be optimistic about, or do you think they're still going to be one of the worst teams in the Power 4 now?
It's tough. I mean, it's always tough when you're playing towards the bottom of that conference, and there's just so many every week. They see the brunt of the gauntlet, and Georgia and the Tennessees of the world and teams like that. I mean, it's tough. Obviously, they're going to be underdogs when it comes to making a bowl game. Now, again, I think Pavia is a leader they can get behind for sure, and if he can kind of not take too many hits and things like that, he's got a tough run style. But this is, the SEC is a little bit different than Conference USA, right? I mean, look, It's obviously hard. I think the formula is similar to what we talked about with Arkansas. Run the ball, stop the run, do that for as long as you can in these games, and you keep yourself in it. But yeah, that's what it's going to be based on, is what they've brought in the transfer portal to try to add some talent in there.
Yeah, it's tough. I think Clark Lee is really on the hot seat right now. Obviously, it has not gone well for him at Vanderbilt. 9-27 record in his 3 years there, but yeah, I think if they go 5-7, that might be good enough to stave off, another year. But other than that, man, I think it could be a rough year for them next year. They have a tough schedule, right? They always play a tough schedule in the SEC, but they got Virginia Tech as one of their non-con games this year. That's a really, really good team they're playing. They got Missouri, they got Alabama, they got Kentucky, they got Texas, they got LSU, they got Tennessee. Like, it's going to be tough for them to make a bowl game next year. I don't think a bowl game is really realistic for them, but they have a chance to win more than 2 games, I think, for sure. I think they play Alcorn State, they play Georgia State, they play Ball State. Those are 3 games they could win next year. And there's other SEC teams that they could potentially beat as well. Yeah, with Clark Lee very firmly on the hot seat, what would you say is the minimum record for him to keep his job right now, do you think?
I mean, you'd probably like to see 5. 4 would be, you want to see progress, right? A lot of it is about progress as a program, but you'd probably like to see something that surprises you a little bit, right? And I think 5 wins probably implies that there's 2 upsets in there, and you would like to see that. But a lot of it, when it comes to teams like that, it's an eye test and a progress thing as a whole. But it's always a tough situation playing and coaching there.
Yeah, it really is. So it's tough to win at Vanderbilt, and obviously they've struggled there in recent years. But that's what we got for our preview of the Vanderbilt Commodores. And we wrap up our preview of the Southeastern Conference. Again, we're doing this for every single one of the Power 4 conferences, in addition to Notre Dame, Oregon State, and Washington State. We didn't forget about those guys either. And also some Group of 5 stuff. Don't worry about that either. So we'll do some of that too. But subscribe to the channel. We got plenty more coming. 56 more in total that we're doing. Actually, 54 more in total we're doing for the 2024 college football season. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any single one of them.